Exposed. They claimed poverty, but revealed incredible cruise photos that changed everything. In a small Midwestern town, whispers erupted. Sarah, the hardworking single mother and devoted caretaker to her teenage son Jake, suddenly found herself the center of gossip. Her modest life, the long hours at the local diner and late-night office cleaning drew respect from some, but cloaked them in a cloud of suspicion when a photograph surfaced. A snapshot of the two of them, sun-kissed and smiling on a cruise they had seemingly enjoyed without a care. How could she afford that? People scoffed, their voices dripping like poison. The rumors twisted and morphed until they turned into cold stares and judgment. Even as Sarah scrambled to keep her family's head above water, the memory of that trip, a generous gift from a kind neighbor, became a glaring lie in the eyes of the town. With every chatter that bounced around community events, she felt her heart sink. She could no longer see the friendly faces of her neighbors. Instead, they morphed into accusing eyes that weighed heavily on her soul. It didn't take long for laughter and camaraderie to become echoes of betrayal. The community she had once leant on now shifted beneath her, a shaky ground of social prejudice. Jake, the bright kid with dreams larger than their small home, began to withdraw. The buoyant spirit she admired dimmed, and she could see the struggle reflected in his deep-set eyes. He too had felt the sting of rejection as his classmates picked apart the picture, their innocent curiosity turning sharp and biting. Each time their eyes met, Sarah could feel the gulf widening, the unspoken words tightening around them like a noose. With resolution burning like a low flame in her heart, Sarah aimed to rise above. They were a pillar of strength, a mother and son braving the storm together. She resolved to challenge the narrative at the upcoming annual community meeting. She would stand tall, her voice unyielding against the surging tide. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in her chest, igniting a fire to reclaim their dignity. Before she could prepare herself for the confrontation, there was a moment. The ripple of tension surged as she took a breath, her heart an anxious drum. "I have to speak my truth," she told herself. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the meeting unfolded, voices clashed with passion, locals debating what merit, entitlement, and community support meant. Sarah prepared to speak, but the very person who had gifted her the cruise unexpectedly stepped into the spotlight. The revelation shot through the crowd like wildfire. Jake's classmates looked at each other, their disbelief punctuated by murmurings of regret. A collective shift rippled through the audience. But as Sarah met their eyes, a blend of remorse and anticipation filled the air. The moment stretched long, each heart pounding, yet heavy. She raised her hand, trembling, ready to share their struggles, ready to mend what had been frayed. But would they listen? Would they understand? The question hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. The story of resilience, love, and struggle teetered on the edge, waiting for its next chapter to unfold. As Sarah's hand hovered in the air, the noise in the community hall began to dull. She could feel every eye on her, every whispered judgment hanging like a cold shroud. The kindness and warmth she once felt from those familiar faces were now crisp and distant, replaced by accusations she hadn't earned. But behind those nervous thoughts lay a flicker of hope. "Excuse me," she finally forced out, her voice steadying despite her trembling heart. The chatter quieted, and she saw the curious, uncertain faces of her neighbors. They were waiting for the truth, or perhaps for her to crumble. Clearing her throat, she began, "I want to talk about the cruise, about the photo that has everyone talking. It's not what you think." The murmurs started again, but this time, they were filled with confusion rather than scorn. She pressed on, her words gaining strength. "It was a gift from Mr. Thompson down the street. He saw me working 2 jobs and wanted to offer a little joy, a little break for Jake and me. We didn't ask for it, we didn't earn it. It was simply his kindness. As she spoke, she caught sight of Jake near the back, his expression torn between pride and anxiety. She wanted to comfort him, to tell him that she'd shield him from the hurt, but she knew this moment was bigger than the two of them. Their story needed to be heard. Every day, I work hard to make ends meet, she continued, her voice rising. I love my son. I want him to see the world and know there's more beyond this town. We've been struggling for so long, but we're not ashamed. The crowd hung on her every word, some faces softening, while others still looked skeptical. But why? Came a voice from the middle of the room, a middle-aged woman, arms crossed tight, eyes still sharp. Why not just say thank you instead of flaunting it? Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of that accusation, but it only fueled her resolve. Because this isn't about flaunting anything, she replied, her heart pounding. It's about being honest and showing that life isn't perfect for everyone. Just because we fight to stay afloat, that doesn't mean we don't deserve kindness. We have to stop burying one another under layers of judgment because we don't know the whole truth. A small murmur of agreement swept through the crowd, a ripple of realization. They were beginning to see her, not as a scandal but as a mother, just like any of them. She saw a few heads nodding, some even looking down as if they felt the weight of their earlier whispers. I want Jake to learn the value of kindness, just as I was taught. It's a lesson that will help him, not just in school but in life. Finally, she locked eyes with Jake again, whose timid smile brought a flood of warmth to her chest. Then, the mayor stepped forward, a thoughtful look on his face. Sarah, thank you for sharing your truth. We all have stories. This reminds us how easily we can misunderstand one another, how we need to support, not judge. But just as relief began to wash over her, another voice broke in, deeper and more troubling, pulsing with anger. But what about those of us who are really struggling? What about those who have no one looking out for them? The tension in the room immediately shifted again. Every heart seemed to hold its breath as Sarah's heart sank. The fight was not over, far from it. Pushing against the wall of emotion, she realized this conversation was only just beginning. How would they move beyond resentment? Could they come together in understanding? The meeting was nowhere near the resolution Sarah hoped for, but she had ignited a spark. Now she just had to find a way to fan it into flame. Because as she stood amidst the sea of faces, her courage was met with a chasm of unresolved pain, and she knew the real battle for understanding lay ahead. Would they all be willing to listen? Would they be able to unite their differences into something constructive? The air felt thick with questions, and she could feel the weight of the future bearing down on her. What would it take to bridge the divides in their community? What would it take to heal those wounds together? The silence in the community hall thickened, each person's gaze sharpening as if waiting for Sarah to respond to the fresh wave of doubt. Her heartbeat quickened. She could feel the pulse of fear in her temples, and suddenly, the warmth she had kindled moments ago felt fragile, like a candle flickering in a gust of wind. Let us not forget, Sarah began, feeling her voice tremble but pushing through, that kindness doesn't just come to those who shout the loudest. It looks different for everyone. Maybe we just need to be reminded of that. A murmur broke out. Some nodded, while others shook their heads, a reflection of the layered emotions in the room. A man near the front stood up, his brow furrowed. But how do we know it's not just a handout? What if it encourages more people to rely on others instead of stepping up? Sarah's eyes darted around the hall, catching glimpses of expressions that were half recognition, half rejection. Jake was still there, his small frame shrinking into the shadows. That's the thing, she said, her words urgent and imploring. This isn't about handouts. It's about connection. We all have our stories, our struggles. This moment is our chance to get real, to listen. A ripple of change flickered through the crowd. A few voices rose, hesitant yet brave. How did you manage to take the trip? What was it like? That was it. Sarah seized the moment. It was beautiful. The ocean was endless. And for those few days, Jake got to experience something that hadn't felt possible for a long time. She paused, letting the image settle into the minds of her neighbors. He saw dolphins, tasted fresh fruit, and for once he was just a kid with a smile on his face. We forget that we can bring joy into hard times. The skepticism in the crowd began to fade, replaced by something softer, more human. She saw tears welling in some eyes and felt her own voice catching in her throat as she fought against the swelling emotions. Then, a woman in the back, her face lined with years of struggle, stepped forward. "It's hard for us to see that sometimes," she admitted. "We get stuck in our pain and forget how to be happy for others, especially when we're hurting." A collective gasp moved through the hall. Sarah met the woman's gaze, sensing the depth of her vulnerability. This was the moment to bridge the divide. "Yes, that pain can blind us," she replied, her heart racing. "But if we could find a way to share both joy and hurt, wouldn't we all be stronger?" The idea hung in the air, almost palpable. Discussions sparked anew, veering into realms of shared experiences and community support. Questions flowed like a river finally breaking free from a dam, carrying fears, hopes, and aspirations onward. Suddenly, the mayor raised his hand for silence. "Sarah's right. What if we formed a community group? One that not only focuses on struggles but also celebrates the joys, no matter how small." A breath of hope shimmered through the hall. "A space to share, to connect further," Sarah echoed, her eyes bright with possibility. "We can come together and make sure no one feels alone in their pain." But just as momentum built behind her words, the initial skeptic, still bracing with arms crossed, interjected, "And what about the costs? How do we fund this? Where would the money come from?" The energy in the room shifted again, thickening like fog. Could they truly move past all this uncertainty? Was it that simple to shift focus, to evolve? In that moment, Sarah felt both the weight of potential and the uncertainty it carried. Their desire for unity hung in the balance, fragile yet powerful. She realized then, they were not just fighting for understanding, they were building something new. As thoughts spiraled in her mind, she felt the walls of doubt begin to crack. "Maybe it starts with us asking for more help," she breathed, "and not just for ourselves but for each other." The sound of murmured agreement began to build, yet the undercurrent of concern still lingered. "How will we trust again?" someone whispered. Sarah took that question deep into her heart, feeling it echo there. She knew this was only the beginning. How to solve that dilemma? How to foster trust again? That was the question looming over them all like a dark cloud. She realized they needed to face it together, or the very foundation of their community might crumble once and for all. The mayor's brow knitted, a reflection of the heavy conversation that swirled around the room. Sarah could almost feel the collective heartbeat as uncertainty gripped the crowd. The question hung in the air like a specter, demanding attention. How will we trust again? It reverberated in her mind, heavy and charged, pulling her thoughts in different directions. Their mutual pain, the wounds healed over but never quite forgotten, pressed against the walls of their togetherness. It had been a long time since anyone truly listened. In that moment, she sensed it wasn't just about her and Jake anymore. It was about every face in the room, each marked by different battles fought in the name of survival. Each with a story, a thread that could intertwine if only they could see beyond their fears. "Trust is earned." Sarah finally broke the silence, her words steadying as they escaped her lips. "It's built just like a house. We can't just expect it to appear overnight. It takes small moments of honesty, vulnerability, and connection." Some faces shifted, skepticism softening to intrigue. "But how do we start?" Another voice called, almost desperately. "We share," Sarah replied, feeling the tide of hope rising within her. "We share our stories, our fears. We embrace our vulnerabilities. Trust grows in those moments of raw honesty. We can create a group where we can connect, support one another through honest conversations. Can start right here, right now." The murmurs turned into murmurs of contemplation. A small hand shot up from the back. It was Jake. "What about our stories? No one ever really listens to us. It's always the grown-ups." His voice was like a bell, ringing out a truth that should have never been overlooked. She felt warmth bloom within her, pride mingling with sorrow for his past. You're right, Jake. We need to invite everyone to share, kids, adults, everyone in our community. We'll hold a safe space for all stories, so no one feels alone or unheard. The crowd's unease began to dissipate. Slowly, parents nodded in agreement, their eyes glimmering with the possibility of change. People began whispering to one another, eyes lighting up with newfound optimism. We could even have a storytelling night, suggested a woman with curly hair from the front row. A potluck where we eat, laugh, and share our lives. Exactly, Sarah beamed. It doesn't have to be just another meeting. It can be a celebration of us where we talk about everything, the tough stuff, but also the funny moments and victories. Another neighbor chimed in, and we could each bring something from our past to share, pics, stories, anything that means something to us. The sparks of ideas ignited more voices in the room. The suggestions flowed one after the other, building energy that felt palpable. Meals, games, even a small newsletter to highlight stories shared. But the skeptic from before spoke up again. That sounds nice, but what if it doesn't work? What if we try and get hurt again? Silence fell. Sarah's heart raced. She understood their hesitation, the unease rooted so deeply in their collective experience. We may stumble, she admitted softly, but it's through stumbling that we learn. Every time we reach out, every time we risk, we also gain something. We discover who we are and how strong we can be together. Her words seemed to resonate in the dimly lit hall. One by one, faces softened, eyes glistening with unshed tears. The weight of the unspoken melted just a little. With a sense of determination surging through her, she continued, maybe we don't just build trust through sharing but also through understanding and forgiveness. Let us be patient with one another. A moment of stillness enveloped them, filled with possibility. As the meeting began to wind down, Sarah felt an unfamiliar resilience blossom within her. There was a flicker of hope igniting in the air, growing stronger with each passing moment. But what she didn't expect was the sudden announcement of a gathering next week. Sparked by a name no one had mentioned in a long time, someone who had left the community years ago, someone whose return could change everything. Would it ignite new hopes or stir old fears? Sarah sat in the quiet of her kitchen, the soft murmur of the neighborhood filtering through the open window. Though the sun was setting, casting warm hues of orange and pink across the sky, a chill tightened her chest. The announcement during the meeting lingered like a stubborn cloud. Who would come back to their town? Someone they hadn't thought about in years. Someone whose name could tug at memories buried deep. Jake wandered in, an unfinished sandwich in hand. He caught the distant look in her eyes. Are you okay, Mom? He asked, concern weaved into his innocent voice. She forced a smile, acknowledging the worry etched on his small face. Yeah, buddy. Just thinking. About what? He pressed, a tenacity in his nature that wouldn't easily let go. About how to make our stories heard. Jake nodded, chewing thoughtfully. Can I tell my story? Of course, she replied, heart swelling with love and pride. It's just as important as anyone else's. He glanced down, the familiar flicker of apprehension crossing his features. But what if it's too sad? Then it's still real, she encouraged, kneeling to meet his gaze. Sad stories hold a lot of courage in them. You're brave for wanting to share. Jake studied her, a small flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. Okay, I will. The evening wrapped around them as they began to brainstorm ideas. Sarah realized their own stories were already blending into the narrative that the community was hoping to create. Each word exchanged at home became a brick added to the foundation they intended to build as the week rolled forward. Anticipation built within her. The posters announcing the gathering were taped up around town like colorful invitations, but underneath the bright colors lay shadows of uncertainty. Would they truly welcome back a past that once stung? That Friday night, a peculiar mix of excitement and dread coursed through the small community center. As families began to trickle in, laughter drifted against the walls, melding with the smell of homemade pies and casseroles enriching the air. Faces both familiar and unfamiliar mingled, and the collective hope that resonated in the room felt palpable. Jake clasped her hand tightly as they stood together near the entrance, watching the chaos unfold. A few kids on the other side of the room were already laughing and sharing stories of summer camp. She saw the hesitant looks of parents meeting again, grappling with unspoken tensions and long-forgotten wounds. When the clock chimed 7, the crowd hushed, attentiveness sinking over the room. Sarah adjusted the microphone in her hand, the weight of her heart echoing in her ears. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice soft but steady. The warmth of familiar eyes upon her gave her courage. "This is a space to share, to embrace who we are as a community. Let us be vulnerable together." Just then, the doors swung open, and everyone turned. It happened so fast, gasps erupting from various corners of the room. The air stilled as a figure stepped through, a tall woman with striking red hair, unmistakably familiar, her presence commanding attention. "Rebecca," whispered someone, eyes wide. Sarah felt the breath hitch in her throat. The last time she had seen Rebecca was at the turbulent town meeting before she left. The emotions came rushing back: anger, sadness, confusion. But now, Rebecca's expression reflected something genuine. She looked scared, but also hopeful. This was it. The moment they had been waiting for, the one that could either bind them or shatter everything they had tried to build since. As Rebecca took the center stage, eyes darted between the two of them, Sarah and Rebecca, each holding the weight of years apart. Would they reconnect? Would old wounds burst open? What would Rebecca share that might change everything again? Rebecca stood with a slight tremble, her eyes scanning the crowd, soaking in the faces that told stories of shared history and loss. She took a deep breath, her voice barely a whisper at first. "I know I'm not exactly welcome here," she began, the weight of her words sinking heavy in the still air. An uneasy murmur rippled through the audience. "But I'm here to reconnect, to apologize." She swallowed hard, wiping a stray tear that threatened to escape, "and to share my own story." Sarah's stomach twisted. Apologize? Years had piled up since Rebecca left, each year thickening the knot of unresolved feelings within her. One moment, she had packed her bags and walked out. The next, she was standing in front of them, as if time had meant nothing. "I left to escape a lot of things. My own insecurities, my hurt, things I felt I couldn't face here," Rebecca admitted, her voice growing stronger, resonating with the shared vulnerability of the room. "When I left, I didn't just leave this community. I abandoned the people I loved. And I'm sorry." Sarah felt the sting of anger surface, mixed with a glimmer of understanding. It was complicated. Hurt had been exchanged for hurt, but could forgiveness truly flow from the scars they all wore? "I've done some growing while I've been away," Rebecca continued, glancing nervously at Sarah. "I traveled. I found pieces of myself I didn't even know were missing. I thought I could find happiness outside these walls." But she paused, drawing in another shaky breath. "I realized that happiness doesn't come from running away. It comes from facing your story head-on." Jake squeezed Sarah's hand as he watched with wide eyes. The innocence there stood in stark contrast to the heaviness that surrounded them. Rebecca held up a small framed photo, visibly trembling as she did. This was taken in the Bahamas. The room erupted in hushed whispers. "I thought it would bring me joy, but it reminded me of everything I left behind. The good things, the friendships, all the moments that filled my heart with love. And how I tore away from it all." Sarah didn't expect this. She hadn't anticipated the softness in Rebecca's eyes as they met hers, the way pain and hope mingled there. Behind all that bravado was a woman who, like her, pushed against the draw of unhealed wounds. "Tonight, I'm not just here to ask for forgiveness," Rebecca said, her voice unwavering now. "I'm here to start over, to listen, to find ways to rebuild what I broke." The room felt electric, an energy crackling as unspoken questions and feelings floated to the surface. Could this truly serve as the start of a new chapter? Or would this unravel the threads of belonging they had all carefully woven since her departure? As silence lingered, Sarah's heart raced with a blend of hope and trepidation. Would they allow Rebecca back in? Could she find it in her heart to forgive? Jake's wide eyes turned to Sarah, radiating innocent curiosity. Mom, can we share our stories too? That question hung in the air, an echo of the untold narratives waiting to blossom. And just like that, Sarah faced a dilemma. Deep within, she realized their moment had arrived, fragile and raw, yet bursting with potential. Their stories could be the bridge to forgiveness. Would she find her voice? Would the community rediscover trust? Or would the shadows of the past loom too large over their future? With Rebecca looking on, her eyes wide with hope, Sarah took a step forward, ready to speak. But the question remained. Was she ready to confront her own buried memories? Sarah sucked in a breath, feeling the weight of her son's gaze on her. It anchored her, offering her a small sense of courage. Yes, Jake. I think it's time, she replied softly, her heart pulsating in her chest. The crowd remained still, each person suspended in their own thoughts. She caught glimpses of their faces, some hopeful, others still etched with anger. They had every right to feel that way, and she knew, deep down, that her own truth had to come out now, as fragile as it was. Growing up, my life felt like a series of battles. She began, her voice finding its strength. I remember the nights I would lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wishing for something different. I was always caught between wanting to belong and feeling like I didn't deserve it. The heaviness of her past twisted in her gut, but she pressed on. I've made mistakes too, she admitted, remembering moments of unkindness, whether intentional or not. I didn't always choose to see the pain around me. We all have our scars. Rebecca, I see that now. She gestured gently towards her childhood friend, who sat listening, absorbing Sarah's words like a parched land soaking up rain. The room was silent, tangled in the shared vulnerability that hung in the air. The honesty felt electric, sparks dancing around them. For the first time in forever, Sarah felt like she wasn't alone in her pain. But my story also isn't just about hurt, she continued, a hint of hope bubbling up. It's also about love. Love from my family, friendships, community. Even through the hardest times, there were laughter and moments of joy that shone through. She could feel their attention shift, listening closely as she dissolved the veil of distance she had wrapped around herself for so long. Jake nudged her, wanting to add his voice. Mom, remember when we made cookies last holiday? His tone was innocent yet somehow profound. I liked that a lot. His smile brightened the somber atmosphere. Sarah couldn't help but smile back. You're right, buddy. It was messy, but it was wonderful. Those moments are what I cling to, and the reason I think we can forgive. They remind me that mistakes can lead to beautiful things. Rebecca shifted in her seat, tears glistening in her eyes as she fought to contain the swell of emotions rising. The crowd was watching every exchange, every glance that passed between Sarah and Jake and Rebecca. I want to rebuild friendships, Rebecca said quietly, to create memories like the ones with Sarah, not just memories of my own mistakes. Her eyes swept the room, scanning the faces that once were her family, her community, as if in communion. A shift began to happen in the room. Some faces softened, the earlier tension loosening slightly. Whispers of hope, mixed with lingering hurt, filtered through the air. Then one voice surged forward, strong and firm. You left us, Margaret, Sarah's old neighbor called out. You can't just waltz back in and expect everything to be okay. A heavy truth that struck deep. Margaret, I don't expect it to be that easy, Rebecca replied, her voice trembling yet genuine. But I'm willing to do the hard work. I want to listen, to learn how to heal what I broke. The atmosphere grew thick with uncertainty, a battle between hope and skepticism. Could they really find a way forward together? Could a moment of vulnerability turn into something transformative? Sarah's heart raced with questions yet unasked. What would happen if they opened themselves up too? What else would be unearthed? More secrets? More pain? As Sarah caught Rebecca's eye, a mix of longing and determination coursed through her. Their roads were intertwining again. But what kind of journey lay ahead? Before she could make sense of it, the door creaked open slowly, interrupting the fragile moment. Every eye turned toward it. Who else would step into this delicate circle of truth? The hair on Sarah's arms stood on end as she wondered what would happen next. The night wasn't done revealing its secrets just yet. The door creaked wider, revealing a figure silhouetted by the dim light filtering in from the hallway. Sarah's heart lurched, recognizing the unmistakable shape. It was her brother, Mark, the last person she expected to see tonight. His face was a patchwork of emotions, a mix of surprise and hesitance, like he was still processing the moment he stepped into. A chorus of whispers rippled through the room, mixed with the heavy exhale of disbelief. This wasn't just any family reunion. Mark had been away for years, fighting his own battles, much like Sarah. Mark? Sarah's voice came out barely above a whisper. She couldn't keep the tremble from her words. What are you doing here? He took a step forward, and the tension thickened, hanging like fog. The eyes in the room flicked between Sarah and Mark, some surprised, others angry. He had left in bitterness, taking part of their family's joy with him. Was this moment meant to help or complicate? I heard about the gathering, he said slowly, struggling to find the right words. And I wanted to come to try and make things right. His gaze fell on Rebecca, whose vulnerability was palpable. I've made my share of mistakes too. Rebecca tilted her head, processing his presence. You left us all behind, she stated, her voice trembling but firm. You can't just step back in whenever you want. Believe me, I know, Mark replied, his voice catching. I know I can't just erase the past. But I want to understand what happened. To face it, whatever it is. The room grew quieter. There was something about his sincerity that caught Sarah off guard. After all, he hadn't only abandoned her. He had stepped away from the family, a retreat that left an aching void. Now he was here wanting to confront the past. Mark, Sarah began, her heart pounding with conflicting feelings. You think you can just walk back in? He interrupted, urgency creeping into his tone. It's not that simple for me either, Sarah. I didn't just leave. I had my reasons. You don't know how hard it was for me. I lost my way. Mark paused, swallowing hard. I need you all to understand this. Jake shifted beside Sarah, clearly sensing the tension in the air. He tugged at her sleeve. Mom, should we let him talk? Maybe he has something important to say, he said, his innocent tone breaking the moment just enough to draw attention away from the simmering emotions. The crowd remained still, doubt echoed within the walls of that room. But Sarah could see flickers of compassion in some faces. People who understood what it felt like to wander off course. Maybe that was enough to consider allowing him in. Okay, Sarah said slowly, choosing her words carefully. Speak, but know that you'll have to face what comes next. Mark nodded as he stepped fully into the room, the door closing softly behind him. He was ready, but Sarah felt the weight of his past hovering like a storm cloud. She could almost hear the distant rumblings of unspoken grievances brewing. Let me tell you what happened, Mark started. And even though his voice was steady, Sarah felt a new layer of anxiety bubbling within her. What truths would he expose? Would they bring healing or more hurt? As he spoke, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were all standing on the edge of a precipice of change. What awaited them on the other side? The real question loomed as they ventured deeper into this fragile connection. Could they come together? Or were they all destined to repeat the past? Mark cleared his throat, the words heavy like lead as he attempted to bridge the chasm that had grown between him and his family. It all started the day I left, he hesitated, glancing down at the floor, as if searching for the right pieces to assemble. I thought I needed to escape to find myself. The noise, the arguments, they all became too much. I was so lost. Sarah watched his face, a mix of regret and longing for reconciliation. The pain of those memories was swift and sharp, but hearing his vulnerability stung even more. We needed you, Mark, she said softly, her voice barely audible but cutting through the silence. You needed us too. I know, he replied, his voice cracking, eyes shining with unshed tears. But I was scared. I didn't know how to deal with it all. Felt like I was drowning every single day. I thought leaving would help. Rebecca remained silent, arms crossed tightly, a fortress of unresolved resentment. You didn't just leave, she said finally, her words thick with emotion. You turned your back on everything we had built together. You took the choice away from us. We could have helped. Mark nodded, his shoulders slumping under the weight of responsibility. I know I stole that opportunity from you. From all of you, he said, glancing around the room. The guilt has been a constant shadow. I thought time apart would lessen my mistakes, but instead, it only magnified them. I ran from it and from myself. Jake squeezed Sarah's hand, his young face mixed with confusion and sympathy. Mom, can't we just let him explain? Maybe he has changed? The innocence in his voice opened a door that had been firmly shut. Mark took a deep breath, and for the first time, his eyes met Sarah's. I didn't just travel far away. I traveled inward, and it wrecked me. I lost sight of who I was and what family meant. He paused, struggling against the tide of emotions. I thought being away would give me answers. Instead, it allowed me more time to see my failures. The crowd shifted slightly, the tension still thick, but something new was forming curiosity. Sarah felt the walls around her heart starting to crack. Could this be a healing moment? Or was she opening herself up for more hurt? Where have you been all this time? Rebecca interjected, the strength in her voice revealing the depth of her anger mixed with heartbreak. I tried to figure it out, he said, wiping away the tears that threatened to spill. I spent years going from one place to another, from one job to another. I always thought I could find peace by running, but it turned out I was just digging a deeper hole. Sarah's heart ached at the picture he painted of himself. A lost soul floundering in shallow waters, desperate to stay afloat. Mark, she said, her voice softening, what do you want now? What do you hope to find here? I want to change, he whispered. I want a second chance to listen, to be a brother, to be a part of this family again. I know it's going to take time, but I want to try. The room remained still, the tension now punctuated by a faint glimmer of hope. Could they believe him? Sarah felt a slow stir within her, hesitation mixed with the faintest sense of possibility. Would they truly be able to weave their lives back together? Or would doubt continue to haunt their attempts? Just as a little light flickered for Sarah, the door behind Mark creaked open again, jarring the fragile moment. A figure stepped inside, and as eyes fell upon them, shock rippled through the crowd. It was someone neither of them had expected, someone whose arrival could either shatter their fragile reunion, or perhaps rebuild it in an unforeseen way. Am I too late? The new figure asked, their voice a mix of uncertainty and dread, and Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her once more. The figure stepped forward, revealing a woman with familiar features, yet aged by time and hardship. It was Angela, a childhood friend they had lost touch with years ago. Whispers spread through the hall like wildfire. Some were surprised, others skeptical. Sarah felt a rush of emotions washing over her: confusion, hope, and a tinge of resentment that had long been buried. Angela? Sarah called out, her voice wavering. What are you doing here? I heard about tonight, about the gathering, and I felt I needed to come back, Angela said, her voice low yet steady as she met their gazes. I didn't expect to see so many familiar faces. Why now? Rebecca interjected, her voice tinged with suspicion. Why come back after all this time? Angela's shoulders drooped a little under the weight of their words. Because I've been running too. Running away from my own mistakes, thinking I could solve them by being somewhere else. I thought time would fix everything, but it only pushed me further away. The weight in the room shifted as they absorbed her confession. Sarah could see the hurt etched in Angela's eyes mirrored her own. It connected them in a way that only shared pain could. I had tried to reach out so many times, Angela continued, her voice trembling. But I was scared of facing those I had hurt. Jake pulled on Sarah's arm, intrigued but confused. Is everybody going to share stories tonight? Almost instinctively, Sarah nodded, her heart swelling with pride for her son. Yes, Jake. Everyone needs to tell their stories, even if they are hard to share. Angela's gaze softened as she glanced around. I'm ready to share, too, she said, her hands clasped in front of her like a child seeking reassurance. We've all been carrying our stories alone for far too long. I know I hurt others. I know I abandoned you when you needed me most. I want another chance, just like Mark. Mark looked at Angela with a complexity of emotions swirling across his face. You're not alone. I've done my share of messing up. We've all felt lost. Haven't we? Yes, Sarah murmured, the realization dawning on her. In this moment, a fragile connection formed. They weren't just individuals with separate narratives anymore, they were pieces of a larger puzzle. As each story unfolded, hesitations morphed into soothing compliments, disbelief shifted to understanding, the atmosphere softened. An incredible thing began to happen. The walls built by years of hurt, misunderstanding, and fear slowly crumbled, replaced by threads of connection. As Angela recounted moments from the past filled with laughter and love, it rekindled a flicker of nostalgia that was achingly beautiful. The crowd listened, and with each confession came a wave of compassion, an invitation for forgiveness to settle where only hurt had lingered before. The sense of unity strengthened as if they were all in this together, crafting a new narrative penned by shared experiences, combined struggles, and moments redeemed. Then Sarah took a deep breath, her heart swirling with courage. You see, we're not just a collection of mistakes. We are a community that has weathered storms together. She glanced around the hall, her voice blossoming with conviction. When we choose to listen, we open up pathways to healing. We can lean on each other and grow. Tears glimmered in the room, softened by smiles. Let us build something new where we extend kindness to one another, where our struggles touch us but do not define us. Let us gather closer, share more, and empower our youth to do the same. As the crowd murmured in response, Sarah felt the energy shift. The weight of shared stories transformed into something uplifting and understanding that new beginnings were intertwined with bittersweet endings. Jake stood beside her, eyes alive with excitement. Can we plan our next gathering? Maybe a picnic? He suggested, causing laughter to ripple through the audience. Yes, Angela exclaimed. A picnic filled with stories, laughter, and love. We can even invite more people from our town, those we've missed, those who may be struggling. Too. Absolutely, Mark chimed in. It's all about inviting everyone back into the fold. As they shared brainstorms for the picnic, ideas bloomed like wildflowers. They began to plan how they could transform this gathering into a celebration of stories, resilience, and understanding, feeling that soft recognition of community revive. By the end of the night, they had come so far. The bonds that had seemed lost were glimmering with potential once more. They faced the future together, ready for open hearts and honest conversations. It's not going to be perfect, Sarah mused as she looked around at the energetic discussion unfolding. But it will be ours, and that's the beauty of it. We'll figure this out as a community, one moment at a time. As the crowd began to disperse, Jake gazed up at Sarah with a radiant smile, encapsulating the change around them. For Sarah, that was the point. Together, they could rise above their past, etch a new legacy in the town they loved, and pave a path of hope for generations to come. Let us keep reaching out to one another, Sarah whispered to Jake as they walked towards the exit, hand in hand, because we're all part of this story. Now, dear friends, it's your turn to be part of the journey. Don't wait not even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share more heartwarming narratives. Comment below, share your reactions and feelings about this ending. Every word matters. And you must share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. This is the moment to show your support.